Hello everyone, hope you're all well, and thanks very much for all the support with my videos, the likes, shares and comments. I'm very grateful for all the comments on my videos. And today I'm going to speak about what's happening in the Middle East and the context it has for us here in Ireland. Over 6 months ago we saw the attacks on October 7th that precipitated Israel to launch a barbaric, horrific attack on the people of Gaza. Over 34,000 people have been killed. Vast majority have been women and children. Currently, a genocide case has been opened in the international courts by South Africa. Many countries are joining along with that as well. And we see the calls coming loud and clear throughout Europe and throughout from people on the ground here in Ireland looking for peace in Palestine and looking for an immediate ceasefire, because we've seen the horrors of the genocide, not to mention the horrors of famine and the humanitarian catastrophe that the people of Gaza are facing. But we've seen also many countries speaking out of both sides of their mouths. In the European Union, we've seen them fly the Israeli flag. We've seen the Israeli ambassador here in Ireland not being expelled. We've seen a lot of more issues where we've seen this apartheid regime continue because of the power they control through the United States with the lobbyists like AIPAC and many more around the world. We know even the opposition, so-called opposition in Britain, Keir Starmer, is funded as well and supported by that regime as well. So they've infiltrated so much of the political establishment across the Western world and they have a out of control, unhinged, corrupt leader, Netanyahu, who is like a caged rat at the moment and would look at perhaps keep lashing out. So in the context of that, we saw the attack on Iranian embassy in Damascus on April 1st. And there was no condemnation coming from the United States and many of their Israeli partners, ironically enough, because this flies in the face of any international law in terms of attacking any diplomatic mission, consular mission or embassy. And it is within the rights of Iran to strike back under the United Nations Charter, Article 51. And this is important because there was no, as I said, there was no condemnation. And the attacks were flagged in advance of what happened over the weekend, where we saw 300 drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles being fired at Israel. Now, the reports coming from the Western media is that 99% were shot down. That's not fully true, because we've seen loads of reports of many military air bases being struck in Israel. And of course, this is what you're going to hear in the mainstream narrative, because it's very important to note that this is, again, in the fog of war, we have to cut through a lot of the mistruths to get to the truth and to get all the facts presented in a rational and calm manner. But unfortunately, we don't get that through the media. And it's very important as well in the context of the United States Congress as well, because what they're currently doing is looking at funding a bill to keep the proxy war in Ukraine going and support Zelensky's corrupt regime, and also to fund and send weapons of war continuing to Netanyahu's regime in Israel. And of course, Shannon in Ireland is used as a proxy Air Force proxy base, and de facto base, military air base, been used for over 20 years by the United States Air Force. Many rendition flights, I'm almost certain, have gone through there as well. Not to mention, arms have been transported across towards the Middle East to carry out the brutal and illegal wars in places like Iraq, where over 1 million people were killed. And we see that as well with Ireland standing fully behind the American regime and, in essence, the Israeli regime, because regardless of what their rhetoric or what they're trying to proclaim, and they're trying to push some sort of two-state solution and be sort of the leaders of this as well. But a quick realisation would bring you to note to say there is an occupied territories bill that they haven't passed. There is other bills that they haven't passed, not to mention not expelling the Israeli ambassador, and many more real concrete actions they could have taken place for Ireland to stand up for neutrality and stand up to be looking for diplomatic solutions in all conflicts, whether it's in Ukraine, and obviously we look for a political solution to what's happening in Israel and Gaza as well. But in terms of this as well, Biden is probably the last man in the world that would want this. A number of days ago, he spoke about ironclad support for the Israel regime. And we know the corruption charges that Netanyahu is currently facing. We're fully aware of his political expediency and trying to keep his position in power. He's been funded and supported by very ultra-nationalists, people like Ben Gvir, who are in his weak coalition, who know they probably won't get back to power in Israel. And there is a lot of domestic pressures coming on people from hostage families in Israel and many more in Israel who are standing up now against the corrupt regime. But of course, it boils down to economics, because currently the United States in their strategic petrol reserve have about 16, 17 days left, and the last thing they want is an escalation, because it will send energy prices through the roof and create chaos domestically in the United States and across Europe as well. Not to mention what's happened in Europe with the Nord Stream as well. We won't mention the chaos created by the mysterious attack on the Nord Stream, which we all know who are behind as well. But again, this irrational support by the US will lead to this madness continuing. And we all know when Netanyahu, like a cornered rat, is liable to do anything. So we all should stand up for peace. We should all should stand up for diplomacy. And Ireland as a neutral country should be very first and foremost in that position as well. Now, over the weekend in Ireland, Micheál Martin had his leader speech at Fianna Fáil's 82nd Ardèche. Now, this is crucially important because he spoke about sovereignty at this Ardèche. He says the European Union has strengthened Irish sovereignty. Isn't that crazy, Micheál? That is absolutely crazy. Complete liar. He spoke about which we've absolved all our democratic responsibilities. Over 70% of our legislation now comes from lobbyists, European Commission, big corporations, and very little sovereignty exists in Ireland. No control over your monetary, fiscal policy, no currency, many more issues as well that we could be facing as well. But of course, Micheál Martin is going to sell this absolute garbage narrative and try and get people to swallow it, which is absolute nonsense. But as well, he spoke about the Fianna Fáil was a party of action on housing. We've seen homeless record numbers. You couldn't make this guy up. I think he was doing a great job as a stand-up comedian, Micheál Martin. And he also spoke about that, he said Fianna Fáil's job is to serve people ahead of politics. Well, it's to serve corporations ahead of people. That's what it is, Micheál. Get it right. It's not people ahead of politics. It's corporations and big business and billionaires ahead of people. In Ireland, we've recently reached more and more millionaires in Ireland, creating more of a divide in Irish society, pushing more into poverty. Nearly 1 in 5 people are now in deprivation in Ireland as well. So he said he wanted to reflect on the achievements of government and look to the future. Well done, Micheál. Another sellout for Irish sovereignty, who said sovereignty was a backward-looking idea himself. But of course, what's happening in the Middle East is going to have huge ramifications for Ireland in terms of diplomatically, but also in terms of our troops in Lebanon as well. And Micheál Martin, as Minister for Foreign Affairs, Defence, leader of Fianna Fáil, is pushing this narrative and not taking a strong enough action, in my view, on what's going on in the Middle East, in the context of what's going on and pushing it through the European Union as well. But of course, Micheál is a lapdog for the European Union and the globalist elites and would not challenge Joe Biden. Of course, we remember that they all turned up at the White House a few weeks ago for Radcar before he went on his week-long junket to the United States, before he came back and resigned. Left it in the hands of a simple Simon Harris to take the mantle for a few months, take the hospital rugby pass, and nobody else wanted the poison chalice. And now we're in a situation where a lot of the opposition went over as well. Sinn Féin, of course, attended the White House as well. So I'm sure they're looking at this situation evolving in the Middle East, and again, complete and utter unprincipled people that wouldn't stand up for a principled position of standing up for Irish neutrality, standing up for peace, standing up for diplomacy. It's crucially important now more than ever that we have real and proper political leadership where people are going to stand up for the interests of ordinary people, and that involves anti-war, because war never serves the interests of ordinary people, who are always the ones who suffer from it. So listen, thanks again for all the support in my videos. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the likes, shares and comments, and please press like to my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on other platforms as well, and I'm very grateful for all the support I receive. And from Dublin, see you all soon. Slán, take care, bye bye.